Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is ERUVIN Daf Lamed. We have 5 lines from the top. Says the Gemara, Umi Amar Reb Shimon Elazar Hachi. Is that so? The Reb Shimon Elazar taught us that when it comes to determining the size of the su'udas for Eruv, how much food needs to be placed at the Eruv Tchumen, we follow the standard meal size of your average person. Meaning, even if this person is a Rav son, a gluttonous person who requires a large size meal, we don't reckon with that. And we suffice even with a meal size which is suitable for the average person. Is that the case, that we ignore the individual needs and we follow standard? Umi Amar Reb Shimon Elazar Hachi. Is that the case? V'atanya. But we learned in a brisa which indicates otherwise, that we do reckon with the individual person and his size and his needs. Reb Shimon Elazar Omer, Oig Melech HaBashan, who was a giant, Pischai K'meloyai. Now this is in reference to the halacha of Tumah, where when there's a mace, a dead person in a home, the halacha is that all the psachim, all the openings, the entranceways to that home carry Tumah. So if anything's sitting under that entranceway, even if there's a mechitza between him and the mace, or between him and the oil of the mace, the entranceways themselves contain Tumah. That's the exit route of the mace. It's going to be transported through these openings, through the window, the opening of the doorway, so they're all tummy. Now, if one of them gets designated, this is going to be the Pesach where they will carry the mace out through there, then the Tumah only pertains to that Pesach and gets removed from the other Pesachim, because this is the designated Pesach, which will serve as the exit route. So Shimon Elazar tells us, although generally speaking, the standard size of a Pesach is a minimum of 4 tefachim high, 4 tefachim wide, that's a halachic share of a Pesach. But when it comes to a large size mace, like Oig Melech HaBashan, you can't designate a small size Pesach with 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim as a designated route of this mace. He's too large. This door has to accommodate the Oig Melech HaBashan. Pischai K'meloyai. His entranceway, meaning the Pesach, which is going to serve as the exit route of this mace, needs to accommodate him, needs to be the size of Oig Melech HaBashan. So apparently we do reckon with individual sizes, individual needs, in contrast to the Eruv, where Shimon Elazar tells us, we ignore this gluttonous fellow who only requires a smaller share, which is suitable for your average person. Says the Gemara, this difference. Abaye, he'll respond as follows. So Abaye responded, Hasam, over there by the mace. It's just a practical consideration. Generally speaking, we do follow the average person, the average need. Over there, Hechi Navid, Lavid, what's he going to do? What should he do? Hadumi Nahadmi V'nafke? Should he cut up the mace and take him out? He's not going to fit out of this narrow doorway, unless he provide a large-sized Pesach. Therefore, says Abaye, when it comes to the halacha, there's merely a practical consideration that's preventing us from applying this standard rule to all. It's based on practicalities. It must potentially serve as an exit route for the mace. Therefore, Shimon Elazar insists that it must accommodate, and it must be large in size to accommodate the mace. Says the Gemara, so they asked the following question: Pligi Rabban Alei? Did Rav Shimon Elazar? Alei. Did Rabban disagree with Rav Shimon Elazar when it comes to the Oig Melech HaBashan? They'll say no. As long as you have a valid doorway, you have a valid size doorway for tefachim, that's enough. Even for the Oig Melech HaBashan, it could be designated as his exit route. Or perhaps they agree with Rav Shimon Elazar in that halacha. You can only designate it if it is large in size. Tashma, let's listen to the Raya, the Amar Rava, Rav Chana, Rav Yechanan. Oig Melech HaBashan, how large does the Pesach need to be? Pischei Barba. It needs to be 4 tefachim in size. Apparently the Rabbanan disagree. They hold even a smaller size Pesach, as long as it's considered to be halachically as a Pesach, it's 4 tefachim in size, that is enough. Says the Gemara, no. Hasam, that halacha of Yechanan was pertaining to a very specific situation. The Ikab Psachim Ktan Tuva. We have many openings to this home, which are smaller in size than this Pesach. They're smaller than 4 tefachim. There's one amongst them which is actually larger in size. It has 4 tefachim. Now this is a unique situation, meaning he's certainly going to have to make renovations here. Enlarge one of these openings in order to carry the mace out. So we assume, which one is he going to enlarge? The Vadai ki kamarvach, ba'hu kamarvach. Certainly, when he's going to be marvach, he's going to enlarge that specific one. The larger size one, it's logical, he's going to apply his renovation to the larger size entranceway, enlarge it to allow the Oyim al-Chabashan out. So that's what Rechon is speaking about. If you have many smaller ones, smaller than 4 tefachim, one which conforms to Shir 4 tefachim, the assumption is, although he needs to enlarge, it's that one which will be enlarged, and therefore, that is the one that's tamei, everything else is tar. But in the case mentioned earlier, where we have many doorways, many entranceways, many openings, which are all equally sized, in this case, Rabbanan surely will agree to Rav Shimon Lazar. There's not one of them that's going to be designated for the Oyig Melech HaBashan, unless it's large enough to accommodate the giant. So in summation, when it comes to Erev, Rav Shimon Lazar tells us we follow standard procedure. We only require your standard sized meal, even for this fellow who requires more. When it comes to the Tumah, Abai explained to us, that's based on a practical consideration. It needs to have the ability to accommodate the mace on his way out of the home. Therefore, in that case, the Gemara concluded that if they're all equally sized, we can't designate one of them for the mace, for the Oyim al-Chabash, unless it's large enough to accommodate him. But if they're all smaller than 4 tefachim, one of them has 4 tefachim, in this case, the assumption is that it's going to be this one which will accommodate the giant, and therefore this one is tamei, and everything else is tar. Getting back to the halach of Erev, Amar Rav Chia bar Rav Ashi Amar Rav, Ma'arvim basachai. One can make an Erev with raw meat. We discussed this in Naf Chavtes. In Bavel, they would perhaps eat raw meat, or we're speaking about salted meat, which is edible. Amar Rav Simi bar Chia, Ma'arvim bebeitzim chayes. One can make an Erev using raw eggs as well, which are sometimes eaten in a time of necessity. V'kama, how many eggs are needed for the Erev? Amar Rav Nachmar Yitzchak, Sinai Amar. Rabbi Yosef was called Sinai because he was well versed in Mishnayos and Braisos, like Har Sinai. So Rabbi Yosef said, how many eggs are needed? Shnayim, 2 eggs. Continues the Gemara. Hanoider min hamazoin muter b'mayim u'b'melech. Getting back to our Mishnah, which told us that when a person makes a neder, he makes a vow to refrain from eating mazoin, sustenance, he can go ahead and partake in water and salt, which are not called mazoin. Says the Gemara, apparently this only pertains to water and salt, but everything else, all the types of foods are considered mazoin. Melech mayim hudlo ikri mazoin. Only those two are not categorized as mazoin. Hakol mili ikri mazoin. Everything else is classified as mazoin, which sustains, which nourishes. Lema tavet yufta de Rav Shmuel. Perhaps this is a contradiction. This is a kasha on the halacha stated by Rav Shmuel. The Rav Shmuel Damit Havavi, they both said as follows: Ein mevorchen boire minim mezonis. One cannot make the bracha of boire minim mezonis. Hashem created different forms of sustenance. Elo al chameshes haminim bilvad. Can only apply that bracha to the 5 types of grain, which nourish, which sustain. And this is in conflict with our Mishnah, which seems to tell us that everything other than water and salt is considered mazin. Says the Gemara, okay, haven't we already, in Maseches Brachas, asked the kasha on Rabbi Shmuel from somewhere else? So why do we need another kasha? Says the Gemara, lema tihavet yivtayu. Although we already have one kasha on Rabbi Shmuel, one refutation, let's perhaps have another to yufta from this Mishnah. Meaning, if you'll answer the first kasha, you'll still have another kasha. So is that the case? Is our Mishnah in conflict with Rabbi Shmuel? Because our Mishnah tells us that one makes a neder from mazain, he's usher, he must refrain from anything except for salt and water. Omar Rav Huna, no. Our Mishnah is speaking about that he actually used a different term. He didn't say, I'm going to refrain from mazain. Rather, Ba'omer was speaking about that he said, Kol hazon alai, anything that satiates, that fills, I will abstain from. Therefore, the Mishnah maintains that applies to any type of food, except for water and salt. Don't even have that ability. But certainly the term mazain, which indicates nourishment, sustenance, that only truly applies to the chameshes haminim, according to Rabbi Shmuel. Let's take a look at Rashi here, off to the right, just a couple lines up, beginning with the words Ba'omer kol hazon alai. Says Rashi, Masnissen, our mission, the Aslei B'chol Mili, who prohibits this person in partaking any type of food. Lav the Omar Yosser Lai Mozen. I'm not speaking that he said I'm going to refrain from Mozen. The Vada Eloi Mikrim Mozen. Certainly the term Mozen only applies to those 5 unique things. Elahei Minim, Davo Min Dogon, the Zaini V'Sadi Lipa. The 5 grains, they're unique. Sadi, they satiate, they sustain. V'Sadi Liba, they give a person energy and proper nourishment. So Mozen only applies to that, according to Rav Shmuel. Ella, rather, our Mishnah, that seems to lump everything together in one category. Going to Omar Yasser like Kol Hazon. So he's committing to abstain from anything which satiates and fills. The Mashma called over Hamas be anything that fills a person. The Chol Mili Zaini. Anything has that ability. Chutz Mimai Melech, except for water and salt. Ava Misad Leisadi. Let me crew Mazin. But the term Mazin doesn't apply to all these other foods because they're not Misad. Misad means it doesn't properly nourish the person. It doesn't properly sustain the person. So we have 3 categories according to Rav Shmuel. We have Mazin, which applies only to the 5 types of grain. They nourish, they sustain. We have Zon, which applies to anything that fills and satiates, which includes everything except for salt and water, don't even have that ability. Continues the Gemara. Mayim melach hudeloi zaini. Okay, so the conclusion is that water and salt don't even fill and satiate. Hakol mili zaini. Apparently anything else, all the types of produce and fruit, are zayin. They have that ability to be zon, to fill, to satiate. Is that the case? V'amar Rabbi Chana related, Ki avazilna basred Rabbi Yehuda. We would follow Rabbi Yehuda l'meichal period of Ginoisa, to go ahead and eat those especially lush and sweet fruit of Ginoisa which grew around the Yam Kineres in Eretz Yisrael. So we did as follows. Ki avinan be'meya. If it was 100 of us, hava menaktinan l'chol chad v'chad asar asar. So each one of us will take hold of 10 of these fruits and hold it for Rabbi Yehuda. Ki avinan be'asar. If it was only 10 of us, hava menaktinan l'chol chad v'chad meya meya. Each one of us would hold on to 100 of these fruit. So either way, it totaled 1,000 of these fruit. Now, how large were these fruit? 100 of these have a machzakalhu tzana baslosa savi. They would go into a basket which contained 3 sa. That's how much fruit there was here. So each 100 would equal 3 sa. So we had 1,000. It's a very large quantity. Rav Yechon would eat all of them, and after he was done, he would make this comment, V'amar, and he would say, Shvu'asa, I swear, I have not been toyem ziyuna, meaning I wasn't filled, I wasn't satiated. So apparently, all these other fruits don't have the ability to fill and satiate properly. Says the Gemara, no, that's not what he said. Rather, what he meant to say is, I didn't have mezoina. I didn't have something of mazain, which sustains, which nourishes, which that is unique, according to Rav Shmuel, to the 5 types of grain. So in summary, according to Rav Shmuel, the chameshes haminim, the 5 types of grain, only they are called mazain. They sustain, they nourish properly. Regarding other types of foods, they don't have the class of they're not classified as mazain. But certainly they are zon, they fill, they satiate. Whereas mayim and melach don't even have that ability. Continues the Gemara, Amarav Huna, Amarav. Shvua shaloi oichal kikerzu. What happens if one makes a promise? I'm not going to eat this loaf of bread. Ma'ar v'leiba, he can use it for the Erev. Why? Because although it's not fit for him, he can't eat it, but it's something which is fit and suitable for other people. And that's enough to allow it for the Erev. Kikar zu alai. But if he employs a different term, this is a neder. So shvuah means he makes a promise, I'm not going to do something, I'm not going to eat. That was the first halach. Kikar zu alai, this loaf of bread is asar alai on me. I meant to abstain from this loaf in any shape or form, meaning not only from eating it, I can't even have benefit hana from it. Then it cannot be used for his Erev. Let's take a look at Rashi. Off to the right side, 3 lines up, with the words Ma'ar v'leiba, says Rashi, this is the first case where he makes a shvua, I'm not going to eat it. That can be used. Why? He only committed to refrain from eating. I'm not going to eat it. He's not eating it. He's only using it for the eruv. What about the fact that it's not suitable for him? He can't eat it. The point of eruv is that's his sustenance. That's where his food is. That's where his mind is. If he can't eat it, what good is it? Says Rashi. Although it's not suitable for him, it's suitable for other people. And we had this halacha in the Mishnah. It's like the halacha of using wine for the nazir. The chiddush was, even though he himself can't use the wine, but since it's considered to be proper food for other people, the Chacham allowed it to be used for anybody. That's the first halacha. Rav Huna follows with another halacha. Kikar zu alai. That's different. That cannot be used. Why? Mashma kol davar hana'asa. Any form of its benefit, of its hana, ka'asar alai, is he prohibiting on himself. That's Rav Huna's shita. But there's another view in the Gemara, which will say that even in the second halacha, second case of the neder, where he says kikar zu alai, it doesn't affect its ability to be used for eruv. Why? Because an eruv is not your typical form of hana, of benefiting from the food. So, assumption is that wasn't included in his intention. That's not what he had in mind when he said kikar zu alai. Therefore, it can be used for the hana of eruv. But right now, we're holding, according to Rav Huna Varav, he makes that differentiation. Shvua, I'm not going to eat it. Then he can use it for the eruv. But if he says kikar zu alai, which indicates that he's making an isur hana from this kikar, it cannot be used for eruv. Says the Gemara in the first white line, Meisvei, we ask the kasha from the following brisa, which seems to say that even in the case of a neder, he can still use it. Hanoidim in a kikar ma'arvin leiba. He makes a neder from a kikar, it can be used for the eruv. My lava, we're not speaking in a case domer alai. We employed the term kikar zu alai, where it's a proper neder. He must abstain from any form of benefit of hana of this kikar. Nevertheless, the brisa indicates that he can use it for the eruv. Why? Because this is not the ikar hana of a loaf of bread. It's meant to be eaten. The hana of eruv was not included in his initial intent when he made this neder. Says the Kasha Rav Huna. Says Ralai, the Amarzu, the brisa which allows it to be used for the eruv, is speaking where he said, Shvu, I'm not going to eat this kikar. In this case, Rav Huna agrees. It can be used for the eruv. This seems indeed to be the proper interpretation. The Ktani Seif, because the brisa continues. Emasai, when can he use this kikar, this loaf? When he said a shvua, then I'm not going to have anah from it. Shaloi eta amena, which means I'm not going to taste it, I'm not going to eat it. But if he would say kikar zu alai, which indicates no encompassing isser, even isser anah, certainly that cannot be used for the eruv. Says him, really? Aval omar alai mai? But if he would say kikar zu alai, what would be the halacha? Hachanami de emr la'arvin leiba? Certainly in that case it cannot be used for the neder according to your approach. If that's the case, the brisa proceeds and gives us another example. An example where he cannot use it for the eruv. What example does the brisa cite? A case where he made this kikar hegdish. He says this loaf should be like hegdish. He's giving it right to the Beis Hamikdash. In this case, since it's not suitable for anybody's consumption, nobody can have it, nobody can eat it. Therefore, this person as well cannot use it for his eruv. Says the Gemara, now if you maintain that even in the case where he doesn't make it hegdish, all he says is kikar zu alai, which applies a isser neder, which includes isser hana, even in that case he cannot use it for his eruv. If that's the case, ihachi adetani kikar zu hegdish ema arvin leiba, rather than the brisa going to find a case of kikar zu hegdish where he cannot use it for the eruv because it's usher upon all, it's totally unsuitable for the common person's consumption, therefore cannot be used for the eruv. Because one cannot use hegdish for an eruv. Rather than find that far-fetched case, meaning rather than divert to a case of hegdish, the brisa could have simply made a split, meaning differentiated within the context of a loaf of bread which belongs to chulin, a non-hegdish loaf. We can make a distinction. In one case it's mutter, one case it's aser. When is this halacha said that you can use this kikar for the erev? The Amar Zu. That's strictly when he said, I'm not going to eat this kikar, which is only a shvua, I'm going to refrain from achila. That can be used for the erev. Aval Omar alai, but should he say kikar zu alai, which includes even benefit, even hana, ema arvan leiba, that cannot be used for the erev. So according to you, Rav Huna, that we have that chiluk between that personal issa, I'm not going to eat it, in which case he can use it for the erev, as opposed to where he says kikar zu alai, he makes a neder to refrain from any hana from this kikar, where he cannot use it for the erev. So why couldn't the Brisa simply make that distinction for us? A kikar shel chulin, sometimes it can be used, sometimes it cannot be used. Why do we need to go all the way to the Hegdish to present us an example of something that cannot be used? Amalek Rav Huna. So Rav Huna will respond, okay, elamai. So what are you going to say? Kolecha de Amar alai ma'arvin? Even when he says kikar zu alai, that's okay. Kasha reisha. Now you have a kasha from the first part of the Brisa. Because the Brisa began, so it was on the first wide line, Hanoide ben akikar, ma'arvan leiba. And the next line, the Gemara said that the Brisa itself said, Eimasai bezman, shamar shvua shaloi, etamena. That only applies to a case where he said a shvua, I'm not going to taste, I'm not going to eat it. So the Brisa itself is indicating for us, the heter, to use this kikar only applies strictly to this case. When he makes a shvua, promise, I'm not going to eat it. But apparently if he says, this loaf of bread is asher on me, I'm abstaining from this loaf with a power of a neder, he cannot use it for the erev. So the wording in the initial phase of the Brisa seemed to indicate that a kikar zu alai is asher, in contrast to your opinion. So you have a kasha from the Reisha. So meaning, you asked a kasha on me from the Seifa, but I'm going to respond that the Reisha, the first part of the Brisa, seems to conflict with your approach. Says the Gemara, no, Reisha chasur mechser. Regarding the Reisha of the Brisa, we must learn it as though it's missing some words. This is how we're going to learn it. The Brisa is saying as follows: if one presented a neder on a kikar, he said, I'm making a neder to abstain from this kikar, it can be used for the erev. Even should he explicitly say kikar zu alai. Even if he says a lie, it's no worse than a case where he promised, I'm not going to taste it. Because in both situations, whether he's making a shvua, I'm not going to eat it, or a neder, that I'm going to refrain from this kikar is asur on me, in both cases. Even in the second case, which seems to indicate isur hana, doesn't apply to erev. Since, as Rashi explained, that's not the ikar hana of a loaf of bread, it's meant to be eaten. This type of hana, residual hana, secondary hana, is not considered as part of the undertaking of this fellow. So we reinterpret the Brisa, and now it worked well with this approach. But according to Rav Huna, we have difficulty. At any rate, Kasha Rav Huna. It's going to be a Kasha Rav Huna. What was the Kasha? Because according to Rav Huna, even in the case of kikar zu alai, it's also to be used for the erev. So when the Brisa is looking for an example of us, Isser, why does the Brisa have to go over to Hegdish to cite an example? The Brisa could have simply provided the example of kikar zu alai, if indeed that lachas like Rav Huna. So this Brisa is a kash to Rav Huna. The Brisa indicates to us that even kikar zu alai is mutter. And only a Hegdish is also because it's asur upon all people, and therefore cannot be used for an erev. Says the Gemara, you're right, this Brisa conflicts with Rav Huna. But Rav Huna has another source. Who the Amakar Rabbi Lezer. We have Rabbi Lezer, who's compatible with Rav Huna, who holds that kikar zu alai cannot be used for the erev. The Sani, as we went in the Brisa, Rabbi Lezer, Shvu shaloi oichal kikar zu. So this is where he promises, I'm not going to eat it, I'm not going to make a masa achila on this kikar. Ma'arvan leiba, that can be used for the erev. Because although he can't eat it, others can. And he never accepted upon himself isur hana. However, kikar zu alai. But if he makes this neder, which applies to the object, this object for me is off limits. Ma'arvan leiba, that cannot be used for the erev because it's asur b'hana. So this is compatible with Huna's shita. Says the Gemara, is that so? Umi Amar Rabbi Lezer hachi? Does Rabbi Lezer really hold this shita? V'atanya zakla. This is the general rule. Adam oiser atzma ba'oichel. If a person prohibits himself in the food. Rashi explains that he says, look, I'm not going to eat this food. He's prohibiting a personal act. In this case, ma'arvan leiba. You can use it for the eruv because he's not eating it. Oichel hanes adam. But in a case where the food becomes also to the person, meaning he's applying the issa to the object. He's not depending it on his act. He's saying if this object to me is asr. In this case, a ma'arvan leiba, he cannot use it for the eruv because he's having anah from the kikar. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, kikar zu alai ma'arvan leiba. Even in the case of kikar zu alai, which includes even isra anah, it can be used for his eruv. Kikar zu hegdish, a ma'arvan leiba. But if he says this should be hegdish, then it's asr upon all, and something which is unfit for anybody's consumption cannot be used for the eruv. Because hegdish cannot be used. So Rabbi Yehuda clearly indicates to us that even kikar zu alai would be mutar. So how can you say Rabbi Yehuda agrees with Rav Huna? Says the Gemara, indeed, we have two versions of Rabbi Yehuda, Trei Tanoi. There were two Tanoim who had different versions in Rabbi Yehuda, Shita V'Aliv Rabbi Yehuda. So according to one version of Rabbi Yehuda, it's compatible with Rav Huna. According to the other version, it is not. So in summary, regarding making an eruv using hegdish, all agree that's awesome. Regarding a kikar, a loaf of bread, where he undertakes, he says, a shvua, I'm not going to eat it. So although for him it's off limits, but since it's suitable to be consumed by others, it can be used for the eruv. This is in contrast with the hegdish, where that doesn't work because it's asr upon all. So therefore it cannot be used for anybody's eruv. Now regarding the case of kikar zu alai, we make a neder, a vow to abstain from this kikar. This kikar is meant to be off limits for me. That includes not only eating, but even hana. In that case, we have a machlekes. Continues the Gemara. Ma'arvan nazar b'yayin, the Mishnah told us that wine can be used for the eruv, for instance, the eruv tchumen, even for the nazar, because this wine is suitable for other people. And one can use truma for a Yisrael. Mas nisim like a Beishamai. Our Mishnah does not concur with Beishamai, the Sanya Beishamai, ein ma'arvan, lo nazar b'yayin, lo Yisrael b'truma. They hold it must be fit for this person's consumption. You can't use yayin for the nazar or truma for the Yisrael. So our Mishnah is following Beis Hillel hold that it's okay to use wine for the nazar and truma for the Yisrael. Continues the Brisa. Amar len Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. So Beis Hillel challenged Beis Shammai. It must be suitable for this individual person. Do you not agree when it comes to making an eruv on Yom Kippur? One can take food and establish an eruv tchumen even for an adult, even on Yom Kippur. Although for him personally, it's unsuitable. Let's take a look at Rashi on the top line. Shema'arvan legadol, mishu gadol, shevish saris, one who is already mature, shechai be'inoi, who is obligated to abstain from eating. Now, how can you use the eruv for the gadol? He can't eat it. Establishing the eruv before Yom Kippur, even though tomorrow Yom Kippur is unfit for his consumption, that's still okay. Since it's suitable for somebody else. A katan, a minor who is not a bar oinshin, who is not yet obligated to fast on Yom Kippur. So apparently, it doesn't need to be suitable for this individual as long as somebody can eat it. That's okay. Likewise, the wine for the nazar can be used. Says the Gemara on the top line, Amar lehen, Aval. So Beis Hillel asked him, do you not agree that that can be used on Yom Kippur? So Beis Shammai responded, Aval. Aval means, yes, certainly, I agree to that. Amar lehen. So Beis Hillel responded to Beis Shammai. So what's the difference? Just as you can make an eruv for the gadol on Yom Kippur, although he personally can't partake in this food. Likewise, you can make an eruv with wine for the nazar, or to use truma for the Yisrael. What's the difference between this case and that? Says the Gemara, this is the difference. Beis Shammai, that will respond as follows. Hasam, in the case of the Yom Kippur, Ika Su'uda Haru'uyum B'Yom. When is he establishing the eruv? When it's still daylight, before Yom Kippur. When does the eruv take effect? At the end, at the last portion of that daylight period. So at that point in time, when the eruv is implemented, is it suitable for his consumption? Certainly, it's still eruv Yom Kippur. Therefore, the eruv can be chal, can take hold. as opposed to the yain for the nazir. Hacha. Leka suda haruim b'yadayim. We don't have a suda which is suitable in b'yadayim before Shabbos, meaning this wine is absolutely asur for the nazir. Therefore, it cannot be used for the eruv. So Bisham agrees somewhat. They say it needs to be suitable, even if it's not suitable on Shabbos itself for this person, as long as it's suitable on Erev Shabbos. At the point in time when he's establishing his eruv, that's sufficient. Continues the Gemara. According to Beishama and Beis Hillel, how does one establish an eruv tchumen? Placing food out in the field and establishing that as his Shabbos residence, as his makim shvisa, thereby allowing him to count from there 2,000 amma. He can walk even at a distance of 2,000 amma from that location if it's far away from his real home, because that becomes his Shabbos home. It says there's actually another shita which will hold that you cannot establish an eruv tchumen merely by placing food out there. It says more kaman. This brisa, which quoted Beis Shammai as holding that you can use, theoretically you can use food for the eruv, just it needs to be suitable for this person. So this brisa, kaman, the loika Hananya, doesn't seem to be following Hananya's view of Beis Shammai's opinion. The Sanis we learned, Hananya oimer kol atzman shebeis Shammai lo yoyu moedim. Beis Shammai in totality did entirely disagreed be'eruv with this concept of eruv, meaning you cannot make an eruv like Beis Hillel hold. You can take some food and place it out there on your eruv site. That becomes your makom shvisa. No, until he drags out his bed, and all his personal kalim, his utensils, whatever he needs for Shabbos, he needs to fully supply himself out there in the wilderness. Only then does it become a true makom shvisa. So this brisa, which indicates that Beis Shammai suffice with merely placing food out there, does not conform with Hanania's view of Beis Shammai, who require much more than that. Continues the Gemara. Kiman ozla hadasanya. So the following brisa, the halacha found in the following brisa, whose shita does it reflect? The brisa says, Irei v'shchir. If one went out to the makom shvisa wearing black clothing, in order to establish that as his Shabbos residence, so he's wearing black, lo yetzi b'levanim. He cannot go ahead afterwards on Shabbos and wear white and carry the white clothing with him beyond the original boundary, meaning he can't rely on that eruv tchumen to carry out white clothing. B'levanim, or conversely, if he was wearing initially white clothing when he went out to establish his Shabbos residence, lo yetzi b'shcheirim. He can't follow on Shabbos with black clothing. He can't rely on the eruv in order to wear black clothing. Kiman, whose shita is reflected here? It's following Hanania's shita of Beis Shammai. Hanania's version of Beis Shammai, who holds that the makom shvisa is only established by taking out all his clothing, everything he needs on Shabbos, and only that gets included in the Shabbos residence. But he can't go ahead and follow with new clothing that were not present in that makom shvisa. Says him in 1 second, even according to Hanania, this is not a smooth halacha. So what are you saying? You can't go ahead and follow with black clothing when he initially created his makom shvisa with white clothing. So you can't do that. But if he's wearing his white clothing, the ones that he initially established his eruv with, that's okay. He can go wear those very far out beyond his original boundary, meaning he's going to rely on the eruv tchumen for the white clothing that he's wearing. That's also difficult. Why? According to Hanania's version of Beis Shammai, the only way the eruv gets established, the makom shvisa gets established, is if initially he went out and transported everything that he's going to need for Shabbos. He's fully stocked and supplied. In this case, where he initially was wearing white, and then come Shabbos, apparently the white didn't suffice. He needed to wear black. He's going to get some black clothing from his home. That wasn't there. It wasn't present out at the makom shvisa. So apparently he didn't have everything he needed. He wasn't fully supplied at that makom shvisa. So how can he even use the eruv to begin with? Let's backtrack a line. Uchananya. According to Uchananya, this halacha is also a bit difficult. You say that if he was wearing white initially, he can't follow on Shabbos with black clothing and carry them past the Tchum. But the white clothing that he's already wearing, that's okay, because this Eruv is a valid Eruv, despite the fact that he didn't have his black clothing at that location. Ha'amar, didn't Chananya say, the Eruv only takes hold if he has everything he needs there, including this black clothing that he's going to need on Shabbos. So how is the Eruv valid to begin with? Says the Gemara, Hachikamar. This is what the Brisa means to say. Indeed, Eruv v'levanim, if initially he was wearing white when he established that Eruv, come Shabbos, he needed to have black clothing. In this case, it turns out that he didn't have everything he needed, and therefore the Eruv is batal. Af v'levanim lo yetze. Now he can't even use white. He can't even wear his white clothing and rely on that Tchum, because apparently, since he didn't have everything he needed, the Eruv never was implemented to begin with. So that's the Pshat in the Brisa. And indeed, Keman, whose view is reflected here, on Rachmar Yitzchak, Chananya, Valid Beis Shammai, this is Chananya according to Beis Shammai's version, who hold that the Eruv only works if he has everything he needs at that location. Continues the Gemara. So getting back to the other Shita, which allows us to use food, allows us to use even food which is not suitable to this specific person. For instance, wine for the Nazir, Truma for the Yisrael. Sumchus in our Mishnah disagrees with one of these two things. He says, although wine can be used for the Nazir, when it comes to the Truma, that cannot be used for the Yisrael. You need to have chulin. Sumchus Omer bechulin. The Gemara is trying to explore what's the difference between wine for the Nazir, which is not suitable for him personally, and the Truma for the Yisrael. Says the Gemara, it seems that Sumchus does not disagree when it comes to using wine for the Nazir. He allows it. My time. Why is that? Efsha the Mitchell and Zerusei, because Sumchus holds, theoretically speaking, the wine is suitable even for the Nazir consumption on Shabbos. How's that? Let's remember, a Nazir and the Zerus is merely just another version of a neder, of an utterance, of a vow. So a person can go ahead and repeal the neder. He can go ahead and annul the neder. He goes to the Chacham, and he goes through the process of Hataras Nedarim, and he annuls the neder. So Sumchus holds, theoretically speaking, the wine is fit to be consumed even by the Nazir. If he decides, well, I'm going to go to the Chacham and repeal my Nazirus. Efshe the Mitchell and Zerus can go and ask to have his Nazirus repealed, thereby allowing him to drink the wine. Therefore, Sumchus maintains wine can be used for the Nazir. If that's the case, Truma Nami, likewise by Truma, you have the same method. Efshe the Mitchell away. Truma again is just another version of an utterance, like a neder. So a person has the ability to go ahead and repeal the Truma. So what's the difference between one and the other? If Sumchus holds that theoretical permissibility is sufficient, likewise by the Truma for the Yisrael, theoretically speaking, it's mutter for the Yisrael, because you can go ahead and repeal the Truma status. Says the Gemara, you're right, but you know what happens? When he removes the Truma status, the produce becomes tevel again. Tevel is something which is aser. It hadn't had the Truma removed from it. Therefore, in any case, it's aser. So either way, you have a problem. In its present state, as its Truma state, it's aser for the Yisrael. If he removes the Truma state, it goes back to tevel, and it's aser regardless. If he goes ahead and he requests the Truma to be repealed, hajra tivla. It reverts back to tevel, and it's aser regardless. Says the Gemara, we still can have a solution for that. Okay, let's say he would theoretically repeal the Truma, turns back tevel, and now he needs to go ahead and separate some Truma. Very simple. He goes ahead and separates Truma for this produce from another location. So he has in his mind, Machshavah says, look, I'm going to do Truma from something I have elsewhere, and that will apply to the tevel here, thereby making this tevel mutter. So this whole method can be employed to theoretically make this Eruv here suitable for consumption for the Yisrael. Says the Gemara, to be mafresh Truma from another location, that's really not something that's meant to be done, and therefore it's not a practical approach. Halachically speaking, a person is meant to separate Truma min ha-mukav, when it's right here. They're not suspected of litrum shalem ha-mukav, to do Truma from a distant location. Long distance truma is not acceptable. Therefore, it's not a practical approach. Says, well, we have another solution. So he went ahead and repealed the truma, it turned tevel. Now, he needs to separate some truma. Now, let's remember, truma is only a small fraction of this entire total. So let him go ahead and do that. He can go ahead and separate from this eruv here, just a little bit, for the sake of truma, thereby being mater, making the rest permitted for consumption. Says we're less b'shiur. We're speaking about that he has just a small amount of produce here, which can accommodate this solution. Meaning, he doesn't have enough. He's going to remove some truma from this food, which only has a shear of 2 sudays, which is a requirement for eruv. He's going to remove a bit of that. He's going to be left with less than the shear required for the eruv. Therefore, this method is impractical. Says the Gemara, Umay, Pascha. How do you know that the Mishnah here is speaking about a person who set forth just the right amount of eruv, and therefore if you remove just a little bit of the truma, then he'll have too little for his eruv. Perhaps we're speaking about a case where he left a little bit more. He was a bit generous, and he has enough to accommodate even the removal of the truma. So this gets us back to the question, why does Simcha not allow him to use truma? Theoretically, the truma could be mutter even for the Yisrael, because he can go ahead and remove the truma status. He can go ahead and separate just a bit of this total amount as truma for the rest and allow its use. Says more Ella rather sumchas savak rabban. He goes like the sheet of rabbanon. The Amr Yusei. Anytime we have an issa de rabbanon, so shvus means refrain, rest. That's referring to issa de rabbanon. For example, separating trumas and maestros on Shabbos is asur, because he's fixing the produce. It looks like he's being masaken. It's an issa de rabbanon. This halacha applies even during bein hashmashes, twilight zone between Friday and Shabbos. Goes roll up bein hashmashes. The chum goes even during bein hashmashes, which is the exact moment that this eruv must take effect. The eruv gets implemented at the first point, at the twilight zone between Friday and Shabbos. Now, since one cannot be mafresh truma, Issa D'Rabbanan, he can't do it even at that moment, because Issa D'Rabbanan don't only apply to the actual Shabbos day, even to the twilight zone, the Ben Hashmashes, between Friday and Shabbos. So this method is impractical. What was the kasha? Let this truma theoretically be mutter to the Yisrael because he has an option. He has a way to make it mutter. Because at the moment and time when the eruv is going to be implemented during Ben Hashmashes, theoretically speaking, he can run to the Rav, remove the truma status, separate the truma from the rest, and make it mutter. At that point in time, he's not allowed to separate truma because it's a Rabbana. Therefore, this method is impractical. That explains Simchas Shita. That although when it comes to wine, that can be used for the Nazir because theoretically he can go ahead and annul the Nazirus and drink the wine. But when it comes to Truma, since it involves the Isra Rabbana, which cannot be done by Nashmashais, it's an impractical solution, therefore it's considered to be unsuitable for the Yisrael and cannot be used. So in summary, we actually have 4 Shitas. How one is meant to implement an Eruv Tchumen to allow him to walk at a distance of 2,000 Amma from that Eruv site which becomes his Shabbos residence. We have the first Beis Shammai who allow food to be used, to be placed at the site of the Eruv. However, they require the food to be roi for this person, mi boi joim, at least yesterday, meaning right at the end of the previous day when the Eruv gets implemented, it needs to be suitable for this person's consumption. For instance, the food for the Gadol on Erev Yom Kippur. But when it comes to the Yain for the Nazir or the Truma for the Yisrael, since it's not suitable for this person, it cannot be used. Chananya has a different version of Beis Shammai. And the Erev only works if he actually transports his entire household, his bed, and whatever he needs for Shabbos. Only then does it become his true Makam Shvisa, his Shabbos residence, and allows him to walk from there an additional 2,000 Am. According to Beis Hillel, food is sufficient to be placed by the Makam of the Erev. That creates a Makam Shvisa. And even if the Eichel is right for other people, and not for this specific person, that's okay. For instance, Yain for the Nazir is okay, Truma for the Yisrael. Simchas agrees that food can be used to create an Erev. But he holds it needs to be roy for this person specifically, at least in theory. Even though, practically speaking, right now he can't eat it. But if in theory, at the moment when the Eruv took effect, theoretically it could have been worked out that he should be mutter. For instance, he could have removed his Nazirus and drank that wine. Then he can use wine. As opposed to the Truma, the Gemara concluded for us, it's an impractical solution. There's no way that can be mutter during the Bein Hashmashas Yisrael. Therefore, Simchas holds Truma cannot be used for Yisrael. Continues the Gemara. Keman oz lahodesnan. So we just learned that Simchas holds that we reckon with the individual. It has to be roy to him in person. So we have a Mishnah which seems to tell us a similar concept. We follow the individual and his needs. Keman oz lahodesnan. Whose sheet is reflected in the following Mishnah, which says, Yesh she'amru hakoil lefi mashu adam. Sometimes when it comes to establishing a shear, a measurement, a chachamim followed the individual, his size, his needs. For instance, Mulay come to the mincha, the scoop of the mincha korban, which is determined by the size of the kohen gadol's fingers, of the kohen's fingers. Umulay chafnav k'teiros. Likewise, when it comes to the handful of the k'teiros on Yom Kippur, that's determined by the shear of this individual kohen gadol. He has to cup his hands, as large as his hands are. So these are individual shiur. Or the shear of when one drinks a mouthful of liquid on Yom Kippur, so that's determined by each individual and the size of his mouth. Likewise, when it comes to determining the meal size of the 2 sudas for Eruv, we follow the individual, personal needs. Kaman, whose shita is reflected here? Amar Rav Zera Sumchasi. It's following Sumchas Shita, the Amar, who said, the chazli b'inan. The Eruv needs to be suitable to this specific person. As we just learned, at least in theory, it needs to be fit for this person's consumption. Apparently, we follow the individual needs of each person. And therefore, when it comes to establishing the shear of the Eruv, we follow the individual's needs and his meal requirements. Says the Gemara, Lema pliga adif shimon laza. Shall we perhaps say that this Mishnah that we just learned, that seems to set the shiurim based on each individual and his body size and his personal needs, perhaps it's a disagreement with Rav Shimon Lazar, who seems to tell us otherwise, that we're meant to determine one shear, one size fits all, for all people equally. The Sanyas we learned. Rav Shimon Lazar Omer, Ma'arvin l'choyle u'lezokein kedei mezoynei. We establish the Eruv and we determine the size, the amount of food needed for that Eruv, for the choyle, the ill person, or the zokin, the elderly man. Kedei mezoynei. We work according to their needs. So since their needs are less than your average individual, the size of the Eruv, likewise, is a smaller quantity. Well, the Rav's son, however, this gluttonous person, who generally has large-sized meals, we don't follow his personal needs, his personal practice. Besuda beinanis shel kol adam. The size of his Eruv is based on the average meal size of your average person. So apparently we don't reckon with an individual and his needs. Says the Gemara Targuma. Let's interpret that Mishnah, which told us that we're meant to follow an individual and his needs. That only pertains achoyle v'zokin, on the ill and elderly man, who only require less, and therefore we don't obligate them to create this large-sized Eruv, because they only need less for their meals. Aval Rav's son, but when it comes to this gluttonous fellow who requires more, all agree that we don't obligate him to have a larger-sized Eruv. We're not machmir, because what he's doing is unusual. Batla data etzel kol adam. His practice becomes negated and nullified in face of common practice. So in summary, all agree, Sumchas, the Mishnah and Kalim, Shimon Lazar, that theoretically we follow an individual and his needs. But we're not machmir. We don't say, well, you need more than the average person. Due to the fact that you have large-sized meals, what you do is batal, we don't reckon with it, and therefore a standard-sized meal is sufficient. Continues the Gemara. Ulekoyin beveis hapras. One can place an Eruv for the kohen inside this beis hapras, the field where a grave was plowed overrun. There's a concern, there's some bones lying around which could make the kohen tamei. So the Rabbani can't walk in there. There's a suffix that there's some bones around, but he can place the Eruv there. Why? The Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmol. Theoretically speaking, he has access to his Eruv. Menapeach adam beis hapras v'hoilach. A person could be menapeach, blow his way through into the beis hapras, blow away any possible bones, and walk into the beis hapras. So this allows him access to his Eruv. So since theoretically he can get there, this Eruv is chal. This Erev is valid. Rabbi Yehuda bar Ami Mishvei Rabbi Yehuda Amar Beis HaPras Nidash Tor. Beis HaPras which was heavily treaded upon. Then the whole entire Beis HaPras is Tor. We assume the bones were crushed up, and there is no large-sized bone present. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Af Beis HaKvaros. A person can place an Erev for a kohen, even in a Beis HaKvaros, amongst the graves. Whereas Tanakama holds, you cannot do so. Explains the Gemara why. Why does Rabbi Yehuda hold the Erev works? Tana, we learned in the Brayta of Pnei, Sheyachal Lachutz V'leilach. There's a way for him to get in there, theoretically. He can make a chatzitza, a partition, V'leilach B'shida Teva Migdal. Using a shida, enclosed carriage, a teva, a large-sized chest, a migdal, a closet. Rashi says, these things contain 40 sa, meaning potentially they can contain 40 sa, they're large in size, they're no longer considered like a kli, which is makabel tumah, they're considered like an oil, like a tent, like a structure. Therefore, if he goes into this Beis HaKvaros, inside one of these structures, that's okay. He's not going to become tameh. So this gives him access to his Erev. Whereas the Tanakama apparently holds, this type of arrangement won't work. Says the Gemara, Kosavar, Rabbi Yehuda holds, oil zorek shmei oil. This type of oil, this type of tent which is thrown, meaning it's a portable structure, that also is considered an oil, and can make a chatzitza between him and the tumah, allowing him to enter the Beis HaKvaros. Whereas the Tanakama holds, this type of more portable oil is useless. An oil is meant to be stationary in place, a structure, but something which moves around, portable, is not reckoned with. We looked at Tanoi, and their machlekes is actually compatible with another machlekes Tanoim, who are disagreeing regarding this very same concept. The Sani, as we learned, Tanichnas Eretz Amim, if one enters Chutz La'aretz, which has a tumah, if they're concerned there's some graves there, so if the fellow enters the Eretz Amim b'shida teva migdal, using any of these types of contraptions, Rabbi Matame, the person becomes Tame because these are not considered a chatzitz. Rabbi Yossi Matar, he says it's okay, but Ma'ika Miflagi, what is the base of machlekes between Rabbi Yossi, who says that this fellow is tired, and Tanakama says Tame, Rabbi says Tame, Mar Savar, Rabbi holds this fellow is Tame. Oil is zorek lashmei oil. A portable oil is not reckoned with. Therefore, this fellow is right now in the Eretz Am, becomes Tame. Umar Savar, in contrast to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda holds oil is zorek shmei oil. A portable oil is an oil. Therefore, since he's sitting in this portable oil, he's not influenced and affected by the tomb of Eretz Amim, and indeed, this is the point of contention between the Shittas and our Mishnah as well. Tanakama maintains putting an Erev in a Beis HaKvaros is useless, because the Kohen has no way of getting in there. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda maintains, oil zorek shmei oil. He can get in there, sitting in this carriage, which is considered to be an oil, even if it's portable. Therefore, he will be protected from the tomb of the Beis HaKvaros, and he has access to his Erev, and therefore the Erev is valid. Okay, time for a brief review of today's daf. The Gemara discussed the concept of mazon. According to Rabbi Shmuel, only the chameshes hamin, the 5 types of grain, are considered mazon, which truly satiate and sustain and nourish. Whereas other types of foods, they're called zon. They are zon. They satiate and fill, but they don't nourish. They don't sustain. Whereas mayim and melach contain none of the above elements, and therefore, if a person makes a neder, kol hazon alai, I'll refrain from anything which is zon, mayim and melach are not included. Regarding making an erev using hegdish, all agree that doesn't work because hegdish is also to be used by anybody. If he makes a shvur, I'm not going to eat this loaf of bread, he can use it for the erev. He's not eating it, and since others can eat it, it's suitable for this person as well. If he says kikar zu alai, he makes a neder, I'm going to refrain from this loaf of bread. So instead of saying I'm not going to eat it, this bread is asur on me. Machlekes, which revolves around the question of whether the hana of erev is included in this person's intention. How do we make an erev tchumen? We have 4 shittas. According to one version, Beis Shammai, food can be placed at the area which turns into a Shabbos residence, but provided that food is right for this person, mi day. According to Hanani's version of Beis Shammai, he needs to bring his entire household out there, whatever he needs for Shabbos, to make that into his makom shvisa. According to Beis Hillel, he can use food, and even if it's not suitable for him, if it's right for others, that's okay. According to Simchas, theoretically at least, it has to be right for this person. And the Gemara concluded that this concept of Simchas, that the food needs to be roy loy, it needs to be specifically suitable for this individual, so we reckon with individual needs. This will actually result in a leniency with regards to the size requirement of erev. For instance, a chayle, ill person, who only requires a small amount of food for his meal, yes, his eruv can consist of a smaller quantity. But this won't result in a chumrah regarding the size of the eruv. For instance, the Ravsan, the gluttonous fellow, who generally consumes a large amount of food. We don't require a large-sized meal for his eruv. Rather, we follow standard procedure. And even a standard-sized meal is sufficient for this fellow as well, because batla datoi etzel kol adam. The more concluded regarding the machlekes, the Tanakam of Yehuda, whether a kohen can have his eruv placed in a beis akbaris. According to the Tanakam, it cannot be placed there because this portable oil is not an oil. Whereas according to Yehuda, oil zarek, shmei oil.